Let's build a brand new website for someone who likes to explore nature. This will be a one-page website, and the look of it is going to be a little bit different to what you're used to because I'm not overdoing it with a hero banner, but I hope you follow through and just look at how we can do some amazing things using just Elementor Pro. And if you didn't know already, Elementor utilizes WordPress, the biggest website creation platform in the world. I've been using WordPress for 19 years and I ain't going anywhere else. We're going to be building with Elementor Pro, an amazing page builder that I love to use. And if you don't believe me, go and have a look at the stats. And don't worry, I've got loads of tutorials to help you out, and there is a huge community out there to guide you. When it comes to building websites, you got to consider your website hosting, and for some people that's a little bit of an alien subject. Look, don't worry, if you go over to elementor.com, go and sign up for their Elementor hosting, you're going to get Elementor Pro included within that, and they have various packages to help you out. Go and have a think about what you want to go for, sign up, and then start building. Once you've signed up, you'll be asked to give your website a name. I've just gone and called it Web Squadron, and then you have two options. You either edit with Elementor and it takes you straight into the homepage, or you can go to manage this website. This is where you can connect your own domain, but you don't have to do that from the get-go. You can do that later on if you want. And the purpose of this tutorial is to build out the homepage. So let's just go and click edit this website. Ta-da! We're now straight into the homepage. Now you will notice XQFS and all of that. Don't worry, because that's a temporary domain that's assigned until we attach our own one. And remember, when you're ready to do that, you go back to Elementor Hosting, manage this website, and connect your own domain. And you can purchase your domain directly from the Elementor Hosting website as well. Facility is there for you to buy one if you want. Before we build the homepage, I recommend some settings you should go through. Let's go and hit the E and then hit exit to WordPress. You can see here the sample homepage that was created for us. For now, I'm just going to trash it. Go over to where you have your settings, go and hit general. Change the site title and tagline to be relevant to what you want your website to be about. Just like what I've done over here. And of course, you can change more settings, scroll down and hit save. Now, there are a few other settings you might want to consider, like the reading one. We're going to return here and set our homepage to be the page that you land on when you go to this particular domain once it's been attached. Now let's go and check that the Elementor settings are the best for our website. Now before we do that, I'm going to go over to appearance and I'm going to hit themes. Because we're using an Elementor hosted website, it will already have the Hello theme installed and activated for us. I strongly recommend you use this for Elementor websites because it's built by the Elementor team and it is super lightweight. Now we go over to Elementor and we're going to go to settings. I don't need to do anything on the general tab, and on the integrations, I'm going to leave it as it is unless you want to go and add in your API, your secret key for reCAPTCHA, MailChimp or MailerLite. Now on the advanced tab, this is where you may want to make a few changes. I recommend that you always custom load your font. Okay, you go and get it from Google Fonts or anywhere else and you custom load it, and I'm going to show you how to do that. What you should then do is make sure you've disabled Google Fonts. Hold on, you just said go and get Google Fonts. Yeah, you download it and you reinstall it or upload it so that you're using what sits on your WordPress database. You don't fetch it from Google. I'm telling you now, if you care about page speed optimization, please listen to this tip. I'm also going to enable unfiltered file upload because I'm going to use an SVG icon for my logo. Now, your logos don't have to be an SVG icon. It could be an image as well, but that's entirely up to you. Now in the features tab, there's a few things I definitely recommend you activate. Make sure your inline font icons is active. Set your optimized image loading to be active. Improved page actions layout to be active. If you are creating blog posts and you want to have a filter system, then go and activate the taxonomy filter. We're not adding in blogs here, so I'm going to leave that as a default. And then I'm going to activate the optimized DOM output, the improved asset loading, and the improved CSS loading. And probably the most important one of them all, I'm going to activate the Flexbox container and then hit save changes. Remember I mentioned the fonts? Well, let's go over here to custom fonts and let's go and upload the one that we're going to use within our website. I'm going to hit add new. I've called it Railway because that's the name of the font, and I'm going to add in 3 variations: normal, slightly medium, and very bold. So let's hit add font variation. Now this is where you get to decide on your weighting. So like I've said, I'm going to go for a normal, then I'm going to to go for a 500 and then I'm going to go for an 800. So I'm going to go and add in WAF2 files. If you care about page speed, I definitely recommend you go for WAF2. I find my WAF2 folder for railway and I'm going to go for regular, medium and bold, and I'm just going to add them in. Let's go and pick the regular one, and that is what I will be using for normal. Now let's go and add in my other variation. I'm going to select size 500, click upload for WAF2, and then I'm going to pick medium. And then I'm going to add in my final variation. I'm going to go for 800 and I'm going to select my bold, and then I hit publish, and you can now see the different styles come through. So far, so easy. Now let's go and add in our images, define our global colors and define our global fonts. Yeah, I know we custom loaded the fonts, but let's now just ensure that Elementor knows specifically to use that font. Let's first go over to media and library, and you should see the custom loaded fonts that we've already added. I'm going to hit add new media file, and I'm going to drop into here some WebP images. Now if you've got images in PNG or JPEG or anything like that, just double check the size of them in terms of the file size. If they're like 5 megabytes, you really should consider converting them to WebP. And I use tools like bulkresizePhotos.com that you can go and use for free. There you go, I've added in my images, and they're all keeping with the theme of what the website is all about. It's always a good idea to consider your color scheme, and we're going to jump onto that with the global colors right now. We're going to go over to pages and all pages, and remember we deleted what we already had there, so we're now going to hit add new page. I'm going to give this the name home, and I'm going to hit save. And as soon as you've done that, you're redirected into editing it. Before we explore the entire interface, you're going to see there's loads of items on this page which you don't recognize. All you did was create the home page. Why are all these here? That's because we haven't created a default header or a footer template, and also it's just bringing through the name of the page. Don't worry, we're going to change and modify how this looks. Now for the purpose of this tutorial, we're only going to have a one-page home page, so I'm not going to bother with a header and a footer template, but it is really simple and easy to do if you were going to do that with Elementor. Let's go and get rid of some of these items. Now at the very top we have page settings. And don't worry, I'm going to very quickly go through the interface. Let's go and click that first of all. And this is where you can change the name of the page. So if I now want to call it home page, it's done that. And you can see it went and put the word page in for us straight away. Let's leave that as home. I'm going to scroll down and I'm now going to get rid of the title. There you go, the title is gone. And in terms of the page layout, because I'm not going to add in a header or a footer template, I'm actually going to use the Elementor canvas instead. And when you go for the Elementor canvas, we now get a pure blank screen. Let's now go through the rest of the interface. On the left-hand side, you have the elements and widgets that are going to be made available to you via Elementor Pro that you get as part of your Elementor hosting package. Over here, we have the letter E. You click that, you can see the history of what you've done on the page. You can also go and change some of your settings in terms of your user preferences. But also, if you want to jump back into your hosting, manage this website, or if you just want to go back to the WordPress dashboard, you can do that as well. Over here is where we have site settings, which is very, very important. And we are going to be touching that very soon with regards to our global colors and our global fonts. If you hit the structure icon, it's going to basically give you this, and it's going to allow you to start to see the structure of your website. And I am going to be regularly bringing that back into view as we build, because it will help you to understand the layout, especially if you want to rearrange items. Is where we could very easily go and add in a new page. And the minute you do that, it will jump and take you over to that page and start building. We've already seen what the page settings do because we went and changed some of the layout over there, which you could do. For instance, if you went to the style tab, you may decide that you want this entire page to be a certain color. We're not going to have it looking like that. But if you wanted to do that from the get-go, you could. Let's just click the color and clear that out. Do I really have to explain what these are at the top here? At the moment, we're looking at the website in desktop view. We can go to tablet and we can go to mobile, and you can still drag left and right if you want to get a particular size, and of course hit publish. But as you're revising, you'll have the option to hit update. Now let's go back over to site settings in our top left, and we're going to address the global colors and the global fonts. Now it doesn't matter where I click, you're going to come to the same screen over here where we get a view of our global colors and our fonts. The fonts one we'll address first because we uploaded the railway font. So I'm going to ensure that for my primary, secondary, my text, and my accent, I'm always using the custom loaded font. So I'm going to click the pencil next door, the primary, go to my family, and I'm now going to pick Railway. Now, if you don't do this and you go and pick Railway from, say, a Google font because you didn't custom load, it's still going to work for you. But then you are fetching from the Google library. And if you care about page speed optimization, I strongly recommend you custom load. I'm also going to set my weight to be default as well, and I'm going to do that for all of the other 3 items. I've set all my weights to be default because later on I will decide if they are going to be normal, the medium, or the more bold with the 800 font weight. Now, if I wanted to add in another style, I could hit add style, give this a name, and then I could add in another family or another weight. I mean, I'm not going to do this because I'm just going to work with what I've got there as the system fonts, but the facility is there for you. Now let's go and address the global colors. I'm just going to click it and instantly it goes over to the global color setting. If, however, you were a little bit unsure, remember you go and hit the site settings at the top there and then you go to global colors. So either way you can get to it. I'm now going to change my colors. Now I could either click over here or I could click onto the box here. You can drag this around and pick a particular color and you can see it changing. But if you know the hex code or the RGBA code or whatever digits or characters you've got, go and drop them in here and it will bring it through. I'm going to use this as my primary color and there you go, it's now added. Now I am going to add in a few more colors because I know I'm going to use them. I'm going to call this one white and it literally will be just a pure white color. I'm going to go for black and it'll be a pure black. I'm going to go for a light gray, which will be F3, F3, F3. And I've added in a brown color as well. Can you see that? We now have our style guide, which is great if you're ever trying to showcase back to a client. After saving the changes, we're now good to go to start building our web page. Did you really need to sit through all of that? Of course not. But if this is the first time you're building an Elementor website, understanding these settings and tips on how to do your global fonts and colors are going to help you to build so much more efficiently than ever before. Let's get the ball rolling with Elementor Pro, and this web page is going to be a little bit different than what you've seen before because we don't have a menu in the top right over there. Well, it's just a one-page website. I'm just trying to be a little bit visually different just to get you to think out of the box. First thing we're going to do is drop in a Flexbox container. Now, if you're a bit unsure about using Flexboxes, please don't worry. It's really, really simple. I'm just going to go for one, which is one Flexbox. We're going to drop in 2 items and then we're going to have a space between in terms of the layout. If, however, you were going to go for a more complexicated Flexbox because you were going to start dropping in a load more widgets and items, and you will see me do that as we get down the page, you might want to go for a parent container with 2 child containers, or maybe even a parent container with 6 child containers inside. For simplicity, I'm just going to go with that. So we have a Flexbox container. Let's just go and set out the parameters. This is defaulted to be a 1/140. That means that when I drop contents into there, they will sit within a 1/140 estate. If you want it to be smaller, go with 500, and you can see now that has shrunk down. If you want it to be bigger, you can go bigger, be my guest, or you could just say, you know what, just make it full width. You know, I'm not entirely sure if I want it to be that big or that big. I want it to be the full width. Go with that. I prefer to actually go with 1/140. Unless I know that we specifically want to go for a full width banner, then that size is perfectly fine. I'm going to go to my advanced tab and I'm going to zero out my margin and padding. Now, notice the little bit of the gap we have there. The minute I do that, can you see the gaps disappeared? You don't have to do this, okay? You can leave it as it is, but I like to be in total master of the universe control over what I'm doing with the spacing and how much padding there is. Now into here, I'm going to stick a logo. There's many ways you could add your logo. You could, if you want, click into the container, go and hit the plus sign to make sure you're adding in an element and hit image. Well, that has now added in an image into the container. And if you don't believe me, let's hit structure and you can see here container and we have image. Let's go and rename that container so we can keep on top of what we're building. I've changed it to header. Now at the moment, that image is really, really big, but we can change the size for that. I can go over to style and I can start to manipulate how big it is. I mean, I'm just doing this randomly at the moment because I'm actually going to use an SVG icon. But I just wanted to demonstrate if you are going to drop in an image and it looks super big, don't get scared, you can resize it. I'm just going to right click on the image and I'm going to hit delete. That's how easy it was to add. That's how easy it was to get rid of. Instead, I'm going to go in and drag in an icon. So look, you can either click on the container and click it and it adds it, or you could drag it in like that. Pretty simple. I'm just going to go and left align this. That is not my logo, by the way. And I'm not going to use anything from the icon library either because they're not going to contain my logo. Instead, what I'm going to do is hover over and I'm going to upload an SVG. I'm going to click select file and I'm going to select this particular file. And then I'm going to click insert media in the bottom right and that will now be added. Now, at the moment, it looks really, really small and that happens by default, but it's easy to make that readable. I'm going to go over to style and I'm going to click fit to size and you can see what it's done. It's literally now in visible view. Now you will notice it's very close to the top, but that's because we've got no padding. Don't worry, we're going to control that. Staying on the style tab, I'm now going to manipulate the size. Look, I can have it as big and small as I want. This is why I like using SVG, because you maintain a lot of the crisp quality. When you have images, sometimes they start to pixelate or blur out will not look as sharp when you make them either too small or too big. So over here, I'm going to set this to be 30 like that. I'm now going to add in a heading. I'm going to hit the plus sign so I can see all of my elements and widgets. And I'm going to drag this in. Now, if you're a little bit unsure about where you're dragging, make sure you go and hit structure. If I click on the container and then I go and hit heading, you can see there it's present within the same container. If, however, I was a little bit unsure, just pick it up and drag it in and you can see it's now going to sit below there. If, however, you drop it here, it now goes into its separate container. Don't worry, it's not a problem because I can pick it up, whether it's from here, so I could pick this up like that and drop it in. Let me just undo that. Or I could pick it up here and drop it in. So you have the facility to drag and drop. Okay, there's many ways to do this. Let's just get rid of this other container because we want to have everything in one place. Do you notice the color of our heading at the moment? It is using the primary color. I'm going to default that to the text color, but this is how the global colors kick in. If I was to go over to my site settings, go to my global color, and I was to now change this color, be yellow instead, and I go back to my page, can you see now how that color has modified? So if you've used that global color across your website, you change it and it changes it for everything. So it makes things so much more efficient for you. I've changed that back to be what it was. Now, before we arrange the layout of this, I'm going to change the content of this heading and the style of the typography. So I've changed my wording. I'm also just going to right align it because eventually this is all going to sit on the same line. Now let's go to the style tab. Let's go and change our color. I could, if I want, click the color and now change it. That will not change the global color, by the way. That is me doing it on the fly for that particular heading. Or I could just click the globe and go and pick one of my global colors. Now let's go to the typography. This is already defaulted to Railway. Why? Because we custom loaded the font and we set it in our global font. Can you see now how it all starts to connect up with why you should do that? Let's go and set the size. Now for the purpose of the tutorial, I'm just going to use pixels to keep it really simple for you. I'm going to set this to be an 18 and I'm going to set the weight to be normal. That's looking pretty okay. If you feel like the weight of that is a bit too light, go and set it to be medium. Remember, we uploaded those sizes, and if I was to go to say 800, you can now see we're bringing through the bold. I'm going to leave it as normal, and I'm going to change my letter spacing to be 0.5 just to space them out a bit. Now I want these to be side by side, but at the moment they're stacked atop one another. So we're going to make sure we've clicked on our container and go to the layout, and you can see here it's defaulted to the column vertical. So every time you add something, it goes atop one another. Instead, what we're going to do is click row. And as soon as I do that, can you see what it's done? They are now side by side. Notice though, this heading is elevated and it's not bang in the middle like where the logo is. Okay, down here we have align items. Watch the text as I hit this. Ka-ching! It's slightly moved down for us. And over here, this is where we can now start to distribute the layout. So at the moment, everything is defaulted to start. If I go for center, yep. If we go for end, it goes to the end. If I go for space between, it's now doing what I want it to do. I got my two items in there, side by side. aligned to be in the center, and now they are spaced between. I mean, look, you can mess around with all of these settings to get the look you want. I'm going to go with space between. The final thing we need to address here, though, is how close this is to the border, and that's not looking so good. So staying on the header container, I'm going to go to the advanced tab, and I'm now going to give this a bit of padding. If I link my values and I go and pop in something like 50, that's 50 pixels all the way around. I've gone for 20 on the left and right and 8 at the top and bottom. Now, why did I go for 20 on left and right? My estate is 1,140. Look, let's just go back over. That is how wide it is. By adding in 20 and 20, I've now said the contents will occupy 1,100. The reason why I like to go with 2020 is that when you then get onto, say, the tablet, you're still applying this 2020, and the same applies for the mobile as well. If, however, you didn't want it to be 2020, that's okay. You can unlink it, and then you may decide that you only want to have 10 and 10 on the left and right. But when you get to the desktop, watch those values. They're still 20 and 20. So you can manipulate it to be different paddings and margins or typography sizes as you want. I just want to make sure that that looks okay for the desktop. And I can either hit preview to view it, or I can hit the chevron and I can now see it there. Let's now go back over to the mobile view, because I'm going to go to my icon and I'm actually going to make it be a little bit bigger. We're going to go with a 40. I'm then going to go to my heading text. I'm going to left align it, go to my style, and I'm going to decrease it to be a 16. Change my padding to be 15 at the top and bottom and 20 on the left and right. But we do have a bit of a gap going on here. Well, let's make sure we're on the container, go to the layout. And if I now zero that all out, can you see how close everything has gone? Unlink, and I'm just going to increase my row gap to be about 10 like that. That looks okay for me. And let's just go and hit the chevron for the mobile view. And like I said, if you go back over to the desktop, that's still looking fine as well. I mean, you could argue we should have more gap there. So you know what? Let's go and do it. This is the beauty about building what you're doing. You can change your mind as you go along. There we go. We've got 15 on the top and bottom for the padding. And the mobile still looks okay. Let's now go and add in further items. So I'm now going to hit the plus sign and I'm going to drop in another container. And then I could go through the same process that I've gone before. I'm going to leave it as a 1140, go to my advanced tab, zero everything out, and just give myself 20 on the left and right. Now into this container, I'm going to drop in a heading like that. Let's rename this to be hero. Let's now change the heading. I'm going to go to the style tab. I'm going to change my color to be my text. I'm going to go to my typography. I'm going to choose the extra bold because I want the weighty bolds there. I'm going to go for 70 pixels as the font size. I want this to be big and dramatic. Now don't worry how close it is to the heading one. We are going to modify that in a moment. Now underneath the heading, we're going to have some call to action buttons. There's probably going to be 2 or 3, and then there'll be some text on the right hand side. Make sure you've clicked on the container, hit the plus sign to make sure you can see the element and widgets, and I'm going to go and hit button. I'm going to drop in another button, and then I'm going to go and drop in a text editor like that. Go back to my hero container, go to the plus sign, and I'm now going to click container. Can you see now here? Container has appeared. This sits within the hero container. Hero is the parent. This is now our child container. I'm going to rename this to be button container. I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to put it below the heading like that. And now into here, I'm going to drop in my 2 buttons. Go to our button container, go to the content width, and I'm going to say full width. That is a little bit deceiving because it's the full width within the parent container. And then I'm going to set the width for this to be, well, you can see what happens as I shrink it. Can you see that child container is shrinking down? I could, if I want, go to something like 50. And I'm also going to go to my advanced tab and I'm just going to zero everything out. So it's flush up against the left hand side and inside of that child container. Now let's go to our text editor. If I go to the advanced tab and go to the width and set that to be custom, and then I go with 50, and you can see that has shrunken down. However, it's not sitting on the same line as the child container. Why not? For 2 big reasons. If we go to our hero container, number one, we've got the gaps down here, but also the big one is the direction is still vertical. Now, if I go and set this to row, you can see what it's done, and we still have our buttons stacked atop one another, and we have our text on the right. But now it looks totally wrong. Well, let's go and adjust that. What we're going to do is activate the wrap feature for the Flexbox container for the row. Now, when you on row, everything stacks side by side, and you can use custom width 20%, 20%, 60%. But either way, they're all going to keep stacking, and there comes a point where things are going to squash up. But if you use the wrap feature over here, and if I click it, you can see what it's done. It now wraps the items. Now, it might not do it specifically how you want. And if you ever find there is an issue, go and click on your items and go and decide, well, this must be the full line, the full width, 100%. And that's what it will do. If I go over here to this child container, this is currently going to be 50%. If we go over here, this is also 50%. But hold on a second, Imran, we still don't have that on the same line. Look, just go over here and set your gap to be 0. Watch this. That's how simple and easy it was. So yes, there's a few settings, but you will find the more you play and experiment with this, the easier it becomes. Let's then go to the Style tab, and I'm going to set the size of this to be 18 pixels, and I'm going to make it be a normal weight as well. And the letter spacing will go with 0.5. Again, a little bit of consistency in how you build. Now let's go and adjust our buttons. Let's change the text. Now obviously these buttons have to go somewhere. I've only got the home page, so if you click in a bit of the word, it will then go, right, this will now go to the home page, which is what we're already on. Or you could go and paste in a particular URL, like it might go off to an Amazon page or somewhere else. But we're going to be linking these to a menu anchor on our page, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So when you click it, it actually drops down to somewhere lower down, which is really, really cool and easy. Let's just go to the Style tab and modify how the text looks. I'm going to set this to be an 18 font as well. This time I'm going to go for the extra bold just so it stands out a bit, and I'm also going to transform it to be an uppercase like that. Now let me go and check how this looks on the mobile before I do the second button, because what we're going to do is copy the style and paste it. Again, this is how Elementor keeps it really easy and simple for you. So on the mobile view, everything looks a little bit big. Let's go and change our heading first of all. Go to the Style tab, go to Typography, and I'm going to set that to be a 50. I'm going to set my button to be a 16, and I'm going to do the same for the text as well. Now, while we're here, we might as well modify how big this all looks. So while we're still on the text editor, we go to the Advanced tab, and I'm now going to say make this be full width. That is only for the mobile. Look at the symbol we have over there. So when we go back to the desktop, it's still going to be 50%. And look, we do that and it's back over there. Now let's copy this button. Go over to our second button, right click and paste style. Did you see what it did? It changed. I mean, we can do a little bit more over here, okay? I could have gone over to the style, go and click hover, and I could have said the background color will now be a slightly different shade. We'll have some animation. How about grow? So now it does that. Let's copy that and paste it over here as well. So now we get that nice little bit of interactivity. And it still looks okay on the mobile as well. Yeah, I know the spacing is really off, but we're going to address that in a moment. I'm now going to drop in some divider lines because I want to add a particular look, a thin line that sits above the main heading and before you get to the button. So staying on the parent container, hit the plus sign and then go and hit divider. Notice how that line sits within the 1140. It does that because it's inside the parent container. I could, if I want, make it be a particular width and then put it in the middle or the right hand side, but we're going to leave it all the way across. Could also add in some text inside of it, or I could drop in an icon. Again, I'm going to leave it just as a line. We're going to go to style. I'm going to go to my color and I'm going to go for a gray. However, that gray is too light. I'm going to add a new color to my global color. Now, what you first want to do is get the shade you want. I've gone for D0CE. It's one of my favorite gray colors because it spells dodo, but hey, I've now picked that. And then I'm going to hit the plus sign over it and then give it a name, mid gray, and then click create. That is now a new global color. And if you go over to your site settings, you will see that in your list. There we go. We got slightly lighter gray. I'm going to leave the weight as a 1. I mean, I could make it bigger if I want, but I quite like having it just as a thin line. I'm also going to get rid of the gap over there because I'm going to control how everything looks. I'm now going to pick this divider up and I'm actually going to stick it above our heading there. I'm now going to make a duplicate of that, put it below the heading. I'm now going to make another duplicate and I'm now going to stick it below like that. So if we now view the page, can you see that? Pretty damn easy. But we're not done yet with this hero container. We're going to drop in another child container and 2 images because otherwise it looks a little bit bland. So clicking on the parent hero container, go to the plus sign and let's go and hit container. Click back onto the hero again. Otherwise, when you add in images, they'll go into the second child container. Hit the plus sign, go and drop in an image, and I'm going to duplicate. And you can see here that when I click on that child container, it is currently empty. Just in case you were wondering where it went, Let's go and change that to be image container. Now let's start messing around with the size of this. Let's go to our child container first, go to the advanced tab and set that to be 0, 0. I'm going to set the layout of it to be full width. It's going to be 65%. And what we're going to do is drop an image into there, but we're not going to put an image widget into there. We're actually just going to go and pop in a background image. So staying on the child container, go to your style tab, and over here where we have the background, rather than giving this a background color like say that, let me just clear that out. We're actually going to drop in an image. So let's hit choose image. I'm going to leave the image resolution to full. I'm going to set the position to be center, and you can see it's moved. This will become clearer in a moment. I'm going to set the repeat to be no repeat and the display size to be cover. If I go for top center, it looks like that. If I go for bottom center, you can see the bottom. If I go for center, it's more in the center. So let's go over to the layout for our image container, and let's now go and set the height. I'm going to set this to be a 350 in height. Now let's go start adjusting the images that we have here. So I'm going to click on the very first image. I'm going to set this to be a full resolution. I'm going to select my image. We're going to pick this one here, which you can see is a very portrait image. So have a think about what you create and what you add. I'm going to go to the size tab, and I'm going to set the height of this to also be 350, but you can quite easily see what's happened. It's gone and now skewed it. As soon as you set the height, you will see here object fit. Go and set this to be cover, and now it kind of fits it accordingly. However, that is a little bit wider than what I want, but we are going to adjust that. Now, while we're here, I'm just going to copy that, and I'm going to paste the style over here. So this now also takes over the 350. Pick our second image. I want all of this to sit on one line and have a little bit of spacing. So let's go to our first image, go to the advanced tab and go to the custom width and set this to be 15%, because we've got 65, 15. And if we have another 15, that's going to give me 5% leeway to then distribute the gap between them. So while I'm here, I'm just going to copy it and paste the style, and you can now see what it's done. But can you see we have this extra space here? I'm now going to go to my parent container, and look what happens when I do space between. Why did none of these move? Well, that's 100%. That's 50% child container. That's also 50%. These, however, don't add up. That's now looking pretty good, except for the fact it is very squashed up. Before we address that, I'm going to go and duplicate the divider and drop it below the image. Let's now go and space things out. So clicking on the parent container, I'm going to go to my layout, go to where we have our gaps, and I'm going to increase the row gap 20. That's looking a little bit better, but I want my entire page to have a certain look. So I'm going to go to my header, go to my layout, go to where it says VH. That is your viewport height. 100, if I was to go and type that in, is 100% of what you see on screen. If you go with 50, that would be 50%. Instead, I'm going to go with 7. And then for my hero banner, I'm going to select VH93. Now, for those of you that are eagle-eyed, you'll notice that line there doesn't seem to be going at the bottom. There's a gap there, but that's because we have a 20 gap here. So I'm going to get rid of that gap. Again, you're going to say, but now the divider line is further up. Something just doesn't feel right. Well, look, can you see the pink outline of this entire box? It's going to the bottom of the screen. I'm now going to go back to my hero banner, go to my layout, and at the moment, everything is currently set to be a wrap. The moment you go for wrap, you will now have align content. If I now go and click that and scroll down to get to space between, everything is now just equalized across the page. I am going to address one thing before we jump over to the mobile view though, in that I now don't like this accent color I went and picked, so I'm going to go back over to the color I had before. So this is now the homepage without me blocking it, in terms of you get some image visual stimuli, but you get some clear headline impact statement and a little bit of text. Gone for that layout to demonstrate how websites can look very different to what you normally expect. And I hope you appreciate how over here we had a child container with a background image, and then we just added in 2 images here. Copy this button and paste it on, and then obviously rearrange it to sit at the bottom or the middle or where you want. Or you could add in some further text, or you could add in an icon, or you could drop in a video with a background image. And this is all with Elementor Pro with no third-party plugin or additional code. Right, let's jump over into the mobile view, because look, it's all going to look a little bit disjointed. First thing I'm going to do is go to my hero container, go to where we have the gaps for the column and the row, and I'm now going to say give me 20 for the row. Now, if we go back to the desktop, it is still zeroed out because that's what we did. So don't forget, what you do on the mobile won't always translate back over to desktop unless you've done it the other way around or you intentionally wanted it to follow that. When we scroll down, our images are now looking very disjointed. Let's address that. Let's go to the child container, and remember, if you're a little bit unsure, just go and hit your structure and you'll know where you're clicking. I've gone for 170 and that's looking pretty good. Now let's go to our very first image. Gone to the advanced tab and I've set the width to now be 45%. I've also set the height to now be 200, and I'm going to leave it as a cover. And if you wanted it to be positioned a particular way, it always defaults to center, but let's say the image had a particular focal point, you might want to adjust that. I'm going to leave it as center because I think that makes total sense here. I'm then going to copy that image and I'm going to paste the style over that one, and you can basically see what it's done. And I don't know about you, but for a mobile view, that's looking pretty crisp and clean, and it still works and looks great on the desktop. Let's crack on now with the other areas. We're going to hit plus sign. We're going to drop in a parent container with 2 child containers. I'm going to rename this to be details. I'm going to zero everything out, go to my child container, again zero everything out, and I'm going to ensure it's on full width 50%, which it is, and I'm going to go to the second child container and zero out again. So basically everything is flush up against what it needs to be. Now inside of here, we're going to go and drop in some text. The simplest way is just to go and copy over something you've already done because it will already have your formatting. So let's copy that. Let's paste it in. Remember though, that text did have some adjusted percentage width. So we go to there, you'll see custom width is 50%. I'm going to pop that back to be default so it goes all the way along. And then into the second child container, I'm just going to drag in an image like this. I've gone and picked our image. I will adjust how big it is in a moment, but let's change the content over here first. Now let me go back to the container that contains the text. And rather than having the text right up against the border, let's go and add in a bit of padding. 40 works quite well. And then I'm going to give this a bit of a background color, a gray color like that. And that's looking okay, but you can now see the height of the image isn't right. And this is why I sometimes wait to adjust the height once I know what the contents are. Get all your furniture in and now you know how you need to rearrange. But I also want to have a bit of a gap over here. So I'm going to go over to my parent container, and where we have the column gap, I'm going to increase this to be 30 pixels. And that looks pretty good at the moment. And then I could increase the height of the image now to match that box. But sometimes you find you're doing this a lot up and down. But sometimes it's simpler just to go to the child container because that's what we have here, and just add a background image to that child container. So we're going to go over to the background type, go and pick in our image, center, no repeat, and I'm going to go and hit cover. And don't like the positioning of it, you can rearrange it a bit there so I see a bit more of the edge, or I could also go to custom and I could start to manipulate it a whole lot more. Of course, bear in mind you may see some white space if you go too far. Let's go over to the mobile. I'm going to go to the parent container. I'm going to go and say 20 on the left and right with the padding to maintain what we had before. I'm going to add in a little bit of a gap there because that's right up against the divider at the moment. So I'm going to say give me a 20 margin, and you can see it's moved down. If you go for 200, you have a bigger gap. We're going to go to the child container with the text. I don't think 40 is needed now because we already have some gap away from the edges. I'm going to relink that and change that to be 20 instead. Then we're going to go down here to where we have this image. We're going to go to the advanced tab, and I'm going to say give me 20 from the top. Go to the layout, and I'm now just going to set the height of this to be 170. It's still looking really good. Now let's have another section that's going to tell us more about what Mickey and Living Free can do for you. Basically the services, because over here we have a button, how can we help you? But where's it going to go to? So we're going to have a services section. We're going to drop in a parent container. We're just going to go through the drill again, where I'm just going to go in and do 20 and 20 like that. Into here, I'm going to drop in a title for what we offer. We're going to have like 3 boxes. I'm going to search for icon and pull through an icon box like that. We get an icon box, super cool. Now, while I'm here though, before I build it out, I do recommend you actually duplicate your items. If you're going to have 3 of them, duplicate. Then go to your parent container and set the layout to be a row like that. Because now when you're building it, you're going to get an idea of the look of it. If you just build it and then you duplicate, you might go, oh, That doesn't look right. So let's sort out how this is all going to look. I'm going to go to my advanced tab first, go to where I have background, and I'm going to pick a background color. I'm going to go to my advanced tab, go to my width and set this to be custom because I don't want these to be more than 30% in width. I want to have a bit of leeway on the left and right and in the middle. Now, while we're here, I'm just going to do the padding as well. So I'm going to hit the link and I'm going to say, give me 20. Now that is really, really narrow. Don't worry. I'm going to copy this and I'm now going to paste the style and paste the style. Then I'm going to go to my parent container and rather than go for space between, which creates a big gap and puts everything on the left and right, I'm going to go for space evenly. So what it does is it creates a space, but it brings everything in as well. And if I feel like I want to bring things even more inner, I could just go over here and maybe set that to be 25% and then just duplicate it like that. Let's crack on with styling. Let's go to our content. I've gone for a secondary color for the title. I've gone for 20 for the title and for the description, I'm going to go with a 16. So far, so good. Now let's go and change the icons. I'm going to go for a leaf over there and insert that, add in a bit more spacing and change the size to be 40. That's looking really good, but let's add in a title and a call to action button. I'm going to drop in a heading and a button. And you can see what's happened. They've all gone side by side because we're working on a row. Let's go over to our heading, go to the advanced tab, set this to be a full width. Let's also do the same on the button, set it to be a full width. Then go back over to our parent container, go and set this to be a wrap. And you can see now here, the heading and the button are on their own lines. So I'm going to pick the heading up and I'm going to pop it above the first icon box. While we're here, why don't I duplicate the divider from a previous section and go and drop this to sit below our button. Let's go to our heading. Let's centralize it. I'm going to leave it as extra bold and it is a 30 size font. I'm also going to add in about 20 pixel margin at the bottom just so it spaces it out a little bit. Now let's go over to our button. I'm just going to go and copy this, paste the style over the existing button, and I'm now just going to align it like that. And for this one, we're going to add in a little bit of top margin as well. 20 works quite well. Let's now check how that all looks on the mobile. Pretty scary, but it's really easy to adjust. I'm going to click on the first image box, go to the advanced tab, and I'm now going to say, set this to be full width 100%, which is exactly what it does there. I'm then going to copy that and paste that style over the other two. Now, don't worry about how close they are to one another. We're going to adjust that. I'm just going to go to the one in the middle, 30 from the top, and then you just do it on the other one as well. Now, let's go and link our button at the top that actually brings us to this journey item. Now, there's two ways you could do this. You could, if you want, drop in a menu anchor like this. You pick it up and you would pop it basically before this heading. And then you would go and give it a label like, let's call it services. That's one way to do it. And then you just need to put hashtag services as the button link and it will take you down. Another way to do it is to basically just get rid of the menu anchor, go to the heading, go to the advanced tab, and where you have the CSS ID, you can go and pop in the word services link. I'm going to go all the way to the top to where I have my button, click on it, and where we have hashtag, which is empty, I'm going to pop in services link like that. Now when I click the button, can you see your journey awaits goes right to the top? So that is how you really simply add in an anchor. Now let's add in a section. It's going to tell us more about Mickey. I'm going to take this one here where we have the details and I'm going to duplicate it and I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to pop it underneath the services and I'm going to rename this one to be about. This contains two child containers. I'm going to go to my layout and I'm just going to swap them over. That's how simple and easy it is. I'm going to change this background image and I'm going to change the width of this because it's a portrait image. So I'm going to go for something like 30% and I've changed this second container to be 67. And after adding more text, you can see it's increased in height. If there was less text, it would be more scrunched up. So play around with the right kind of image orientation and the look that you're going for. Now, when we get to the mobile, it's looking a little bit skewed. So I'm going to increase the height of this container, 350 in height. Now on the mobile, I want to reverse the text in the image. I want the image to come first. The trouble is though, if I was to go to the layout and I was to rearrange it using any of these items, that divider line we have at the bottom there would suddenly go right to the top. I don't want that. But what I am going to do is use a feature feature within Elementor to reorder. So I'm going to click on my container with the text, go to the Advanced tab, go to where it says Order, and I'm going to click the 3 dots here, and I'm going to go and pop in 2. Image and the divider line jump up. Let's adjust that. Now I'm going to go to the container with the image, go to the Advanced tab, go to Order and say 1. Then I'm going to go to the divider line right at the end, go to the Advanced tab, go to Order, and I'm going to say 3. And that's all looking okay now. Now, I don't always advocate having too much text, but because this is about Mickey, you can get away with it. I'm going to add in another brand new section, and this is just going to be a single container. Again, we go through the same process as what we've done before with 20 padding on the left and right. From the hero banner, I'm going to pinch the image container and our 2 images. So I'm going to copy that and paste it in, and I'm going to do the same for the images. I'm then going to go to my parent container, ensure everything is set as a row. I will then reverse the content. Let's now change the items. I've swapped out the images, and again, you can see how easy it is to utilize something you've already built. Let's check how that looks in the mobile. It's still looking great. I'm going to take a copy of the About section, pop it in below the images we've just added, rename that to be Contact, change both of the containers to be about 48% just so that we can have them side by side. Don't forget there was a 30-column gap inside of this container as well, which is why we have a gap there. I'm going to go and grab this heading. I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to paste it in so it now sits below. Swap the layout over. I mean, you just use your layout directional feature to swap them, change the image, get rid of the text that we have currently here, search for form, because now we're going to add in a contact form, and there it is. Let's drop it in. We've already decided that I don't like that lime color, so I could just go and change the color over here. Go to Style, go to where I have Button, and change my background color. I can even make the button be smaller or move it to the middle. I've gone to the Style and the button. I'm going to ensure I have the consistent typography, 18. For my form, I'm going to go to the content, and I'm going to add an item. I'm going to change it to be a tell, and I'm going to say phone number for the placeholder, and for the label. I'm then going to say get rid of the labels like that because we don't always have to see them, and I'm going to rearrange it to be like that. Let's go back to the title, go to the Advanced tab, and where we have the CSS ID, I'm going to type in contact link. Scroll all the way to the top, and where we have the button, I'm now going to pop in contact link. So when you click that, it's going to take you down. And we could even go over here to this button and put the contact link in there as well. So now you got 2 call to action buttons that will lead you down to here. If you were going to add in a footer with your privacy policy, cookie policy, I don't know, terms and conditions, social sharing icons, anything else you want to share, you could go and do that as well. So this is the website on the mobile, and it's pretty clean and it works, and you've got images breaking up, you know, don't have too much text. Go over here and do book your visit. It's going to take you down. If I scroll up and click this button over here, it takes you back down. We go over here to how we can help you. It takes you to your journey awaits. And if we look at this on the desktop, you basically can see what it's doing. That was all built with Elementor Pro using the Elementor hosting. The last thing I should mention, if you're not used to using WordPress, is you want to go over to your settings and your reading, and you want to now ensure that when anyone goes to your URL or the domain that you will assign, it's going to go to the home page. So if you've gone and created 5 pages, let it know where you want it to go. Because when I go to the URL now, this is what I'm greeted with. It's not that difficult to build an amazing website with Elementor Pro. So go and check out Elementor Hosting if you want to get the hosting and the Elementor Pro package all rolled into one. I'm Imran, Web Squadron. I hope you like, subscribe, share, and follow. I'll see you soon.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss that.